We have enough audience in the studio.
That's nice.
So, this podcast, we call it the Toolbox Podcast. So it's all about technical, audiovisual, construction, engineering, M&E, and so on. And today I have Obvious with me. Obvious is my guest in Uganda. He's from South Africa, but he's a Zimbabwean. And he's the technical manager for TOA. He's basically a sound engineer, sound expert, especially when it comes to TOA products. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe introduce yourself rather than what I've said already. Who is Obvious?
Well, Obvious is basically an electronics technician. I've been in the industry for 30 years now. So I've worked through all my life as a techie. I'm hands-on. When I'm given a product, when a product is launched, I've got that mindset of curiosity. I want to know, is that what's all in the manual? Can the product do more? Can the product do less? What is it that the product can offer me? So I've got a mindset of curiosity every time.
You're the one who open the boxes and see what's inside.
What's inside the box? And besides the beauty of the product, what can it do for me electronically?
Okay. Yes. And with TOA, you are now 9 years.
12 years now.
12 years.
Yes.
What is unique about TOA?
Branch longevity. That's one thing I can vouch for. You buy a TOA product, you maintain it well, you service it as normally would recommend. For example, it's a voice alarm system. It has to be in an air-conditioned room. You got to do maintenance, getting there once in a while, blow the dust out, keep it running. I can promise you most of the stuff that I've worked with have worked flawlessly for a number of years. It's almost like a plug and play, go away, or do little maintenance, and that's the product works.
You're a bit modest, number of years. 20, 30 years, it's not
yes.
Number of years.
Yes.
We know about installations in Kenya, we know installations in South Africa, even in Uganda, we have installations of 10 plus, even 20 years, that the product, even without maintenance, has been working. Even recently, we had a product here in Uganda that have worked with zero maintenance, and just now after, I think, 10 or plus years, one unit of the whole system died.
You absolutely are right, boss. I was just modest. I know of power stations in South Africa that have been working for 30 plus odd years. Of course, the only reason why we're taking them out now and replacing with new equipment is because we don't have spares anymore. So they lived their generation, they went past their generation. 35 years of reliable service, day-to-day, 24-hour operation is not a joke. Some serious considerations put into the designs of the equipment.
And when you say evacuation, this is an emergency system. It's not just a background music for the fun of it. This is equipment that you need to rely for in case of emergency.
100%. They are automated by connecting to the fire detection systems, and basically it's life-saving equipment.
Cool. Of all the TOA range, beside evacuation, which one is your favorite?
It's a bit difficult. Right now, I'm more into the IPA1 series. Beautiful product that we have launched. Works amazingly well with the security companies. We have had it installed for perimeter fencing, voice, audio, fire, your video management systems. Absolutely amazing products. I'm now probably a year into them. But from what I've found, what I've discovered, what I've learned of the product, amazing.
So basically IP, we have IP speaker, we have IP amplifier, we have IP microphone. You can take any, connect to any on the network, basically AV over IP.
Yes.
You don't even need a microphone, you can connect it direct to your PABX, to the SIP PABX.
Yes.
And with the phone of the PABX, you can announce direct to the speakers or to the horns, wherever you are.
Spot on. And the other beautiful thing is, let's take, for example, that you have got our voice alarm system installed, the VM3000, the VX3000, and you might want your client, you might say to you, besides the normal microphone that comes with the system, I do have on my phone, I'm the manager, I do have this SIP-based telephone system. Yeah, we can interface it into our own VM3000, for example, via an IP component code IPA1AF, and you can use your normal phone, pick it up, dial a code that you have programmed, and you use it as a microphone to our PA. So it's a very beautiful product.
And another of the advantages that other competitors doesn't have, I'm told, is it has a built-in messages to the speaker, to the speakers themselves, to the amplifiers, to every unit of IP. They have their own announcement, so you can record the messages on them. So, for example, you can have an IP horn and have a message connected to a camera or to a movement sensor.
Yes.
The moment somebody crosses the sensor, the speaker himself, without any computer or anything, will say, hey, you, move away.
100%. You actually 100%. Up to 20 messages you can record. You can trigger them, like you have said, maybe from a motion detector, from your camera I/O output as a dry contact trigger into the one speaker, for example, that's sitting on a perimeter fence. And once it's triggered, it plays the messages in a loop fashion. And the other beautiful thing, once your message gets triggered, there's a control output of the speaker that you can then utilize to notify people in the control room that, hey, perimeter camera number 5 has been triggered, and the whole speaker is playing, so it can send like feedback back to the control room. And the other beautiful thing, 20 messages on all our speakers, be it an IP horn or maybe a ceiling speaker. Also 20 messages onto the IPA1AF, which is your SIP interface. Also 20 messages onto the IPA1PG. And on the microphone as well, you also can record messages, and you can broadcast these messages in a single one-to-one call or in a multicast call to all your speakers sitting on your network. So it's very, very versatile product.
Is there a limitation of number of speakers?
Absolutely not. Just on your network side, if your port switch is a 24 port, obviously 24, 48, 48. So you can create as many as you want. There's no limitation.
And no limitation of distance as well, as long as your network is working?
Spot on. Spot on.
Latency?
Latency, no. Well, there could be some latency. Obviously, it will be on your latency issues on your network side. But if that is sorted out, usually from what I've tested, I haven't had any problems with latency at all.
You think Africa is ready for IP?
I definitely think so. There has been a lot of products on the market that have been coming through, but with the IPA1, I believe, especially for people who are in the security industry, this is the right product. And anyway, Africa is opening up. Here in Uganda, I've seen security cameras on your main ways. All you need is a TOA IPA15 AC1 speaker integrated there from the same control room that you view in your cameras. You can send a voice broadcast to say, hey, you were standing at that pole, you left a bag. Well, please pick it up. If the guy goes back and picks up the bag, then you can say, maybe it was a mistake. But if he runs away and leaves the bag, immediately you can warn people around it by a voice to say, guys, don't go near. We are sending security to check it out. So it is, I believe right now, yes, we are ready for the technology.
So this is from a police or government point of view, but farming as well, you can have horn speakers on the farm.
Yes.
And control them from Kampala or even from the UK or South Africa?
Yes, yes.
Which other applications IP has?
The other application besides the security monitoring as a backup for your voice on your camera system, the one that I've mentioned as interface to your SIP telephones is one good thing. You can also set up the IPA1 series as a normal PA system where you can even play background music over IP. So the opportunities and the variations of use are quite plenty.
Cool. There's one subject I always wanted to talk about, especially on YouTube, but for the podcast as well.
Yeah.
100 volt
Yes.
versus 8 ohms.
Yes.
I find it lots of times in lots of projects, not only in Uganda, that people are putting 100 volt line speakers with 8 ohm amplifiers. Is it going to blow? Is it not going to blow? What's the... rather than me explain it in my funny language,
Yes.
you are very scientific, very technical.
Right.
How do you explain to people that this should not work together? Because actually when you Google it and you search 100 volt with 8 ohms, there's no articles about it.
Correct.
And there's no videos about it.
Correct.
So how do we explain people that 100 volt and 8 ohms, they are not friends? They should not work together. One way or another, something will blow.
100%. 100%.
So, explain.
Okay. Basically, basic electronics, you know that a speaker is just to send out the amplified voice from the amplifier into the speaker itself. So a speaker does not take a voltage. It is basically an electronic coil of a magnet. You cannot run a voltage through it. So again, coming to your question, 100 volt, a 100 volt amplifier, 8 ohm speakers. Number one, already the language has changed. This is a high impedance output with a 100 volt line being driven into a low impedance input, also not voltage, no voltage in there. So a speaker does not take a voltage. The misunderstanding that the industry has, or people who are into the industry have, is very basic. They would think a speaker is just a speaker, you need to connect an amplifier. But however, if you look on a 100 volt amplifier and a 100 volt speaker, there are two very common similarities. Number one, inside the amplifier, when it goes out, when the sound goes out, there is a 100 volt transformer that's in there that runs the signal on a 100 volt. So in our mother's language, in African topology explanation, it's like you are going into a bus. It's a mother. She's carrying a baby, and she's got this thing tying the baby. So the voice is the baby. The mother is the carrier. You are both going from Entebbe to Kampala. But whoever is doing the work is the mother carrying the baby. The baby just knows, oh, now I'm in Entebbe. I came from Kampala. So this is exactly the 100 volt principle. So the 100 volt transmits your voice superimposed, baby carried on the back of the mother, which is the 100 volt. So the voice is superimposed on 100 volt. So when it gets to the speaker, right, the speaker does not want 100 volt. It will blow. It doesn't need voltage. Inside every speaker, it's not a TOA speaker, any 100 volt speaker, there's a little transformer with what we call tappings. So the 100, when it goes to the 100 volt, when it comes from the amplifier with the voice amplified, gets to the speaker's transformer will block the 100 volts and only allow the voice at whatever tapping. So that's the magic behind the 100 volt. When we talk of pro audio, now we're talking 8 ohm output direct to 8 ohm per speaker. Whatever we've got is properly matched. So the 100 volt, basically, the answer is no. You can't take a low impedance speaker 8 ohm and plug it to 100 volt because it's gonna blow because of that 100 volts that's coming down.
But it works for some time.
Yes, it can work for some time. Africa is full of magic. People tell me, I always say in my language, there's no spooks in electronics. Okay, there has to be something that
I've been to installations. I've seen a 100 volt line feeding 8 ohms.
I've seen so as well, and people tell you, but it's working. Obvious, yeah, it works. And the other example that I normally give, people say, but it's working. Yeah, I've used it for 6 months. I've used it for a month. You are coming to me and telling me, no, it's wrong. Okay. What I normally do is, as an analogy, you might have, I don't know what, in Kenya, where I come from, where I was, they use matatus. I think these combis or matatus. South Africa.
Yeah, taxis in Uganda, but matatus. We all know matatus.
We call them combis or taxis in South Africa. But the bottom line is, let's assume you are having a combi or a taxi that's got 10 passengers, and it has a breakdown, and you are being generous. I'm driving a small little Honda. I can say, guys, let's fit into the Honda. We can fit into the Honda. We can drive the Honda from maybe whatever distance and get there. The fact that I've managed to fit these 10 passengers off that bus into my Honda Fit to go to that distance does not necessarily mean I can now go into the transport industry and start saying, right, Kampala to Entebbe, 30 seaters into the Honda Fit. It's not going to work. Neither can I take the load of a 2-ton bakkie and put it into a Honda Fit. Yes, it can work, but what are you doing? You're overstraining the engine, everything in that Honda that's not designed for. Eventually, something has to give up. So that's exactly the analogy that I normally give. It might work, but it's not the right operational system. Yeah, we both have seen horror stories with this, but yeah, the bottom line, it might work, but that's not designed to do that.
And today morning, we also spoke about the humming in a system, although about this, there are many videos on YouTube. But something unique for us in Africa.
Yeah.
Because earthing is not always ideal.
Yes.
The electrician comes to the building.
Yes.
Test it.
Yes.
Says, my earthing is very good.
Yes.
But you still have a hum.
Yes.
And yet today you told the technician, do X, Y, Z.
Correct.
And the hum will go.
Yes.
Explain.
Right. So you've mentioned something, a very subject that always is a problem everywhere, especially like we mentioned in Africa. People say, yeah, it's earthed, everything in my building is okay. And then I plug my equipment in. You hear that hum, the sound in the background. We tend to define it as a ground interference, so that goes in the amplifiers. So I had a scenario this morning as we were driving to site, and I asked my technician, okay, go to the back of the amplifiers, connect a small cable, just to loop through each back of the amplifier on the metal cases, plug it in, see if the hum goes away. The hum immediately went away. So the issue is, there is always an assumption that because my system is grounded, for example, then the building's earth is on the same potential as the ground, as my earth side of my electrical equipment. It's not. Because if you do measure, in an ideal world, it is zero potential. But there's always a little bit of that difference of voltage, which is not harmful to anyone else. And that voltage, that little difference, is what creates my hum in my sound. So basically what I've done most cases when I've got this, especially with old installation, old electrical wiring in a building, I've always asked, you remember when I was going to site, I said, make sure there's an eighth cable coming from your DB straight down to my equipment rack. It cures the problem. Most cases it cures the problem. There are other extreme cases where you might also get harm as interference coming from the cables, running along 100 volt, high power cables, running along my speaker line cables. It's called in electronics electrical EMF. It's just a phenomenon that we have, but the bottom line is a properly grounded earthed building that's sitting at the same earth potential as the rest of my audio equipment. You don't have harm. Everywhere else it happens, but in Africa it's a different story. So the cure is make sure your building and the equipment rack are at the same point.
But then again, people will say, my ground is okay.
Yeah.
I am not shocking. Everything is okay.
Yes. The electrician will always have had fights with the electrician. One was huge motor plant in South Africa, the Ford Motor Company. I can just mention it. We had issues there. Every rainy season, our equipment got hit. And it became a blame game. Okay, it's TOA, which is Ford. And I refused to take it. I said, no, it's not. So what we did a very little simulation. On all the building, we had the different dBs because of the plant. So we said, okay, cool. Where our equipment is, let's make sure we run a straight cable, a building cable, earthing cable. I think we ran 8 millimeter or 10 square millimeter, I can't remember. So we virtually earthed created an earth on all the other buildings. The electrician was very helpful, very friendly. So he looped all the earth to one central point, and then that's the central point that we had all my equipment in the rack. So as soon as all the equipment, the earth from all the different areas came to one point, and we put our equipment in, well, that was in 2013, 2014. I've never been to Ford Motor Company for a blown equipment. But initially, the junior electrician was saying, no, everything's okay. Nothing else gets blown except, of course, what's plugged in. But the senior electrician, when we were explaining about, in a real world, it's not possible to be sitting with different multiple dBs on very zero potential. There's a little bit of difference. That difference to an electrician, to a human being, is fine. It doesn't affect you. But to an audio equipment, that little difference between the dBs can actually create an earth hum. So once we did that in 2013, 2014, never been to site. Never been. And hum just went on magically. So I was saying to them, guys, there's no spooks in electronics. There has to be something that's causing something to happen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What is the biggest project you have done so far in your life in terms of speakers installations or PA?
I will mention a few. One, of course, here in East Africa. I mentioned two. One was Isuzu East Africa, and the other one is Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
How many speakers there, approximately?
I can't.
Hundreds?
Yeah, definitely.
Thousands? No.
I would probably 500, if I may. It's a whole combination of stuff that I've done.
And Jomo Kenyatta has been with TOA for many years, and they've only changed then when there was the fire.
Yes.
No, first because of analog to digital.
Yes.
Then there was the fire.
Yes.
But they've been with TOA for
for
decades.
many years,
Yes.
for decades. Same as Moi International Airport has been on TOA equipment. We've just been there last week to motivate them to move on because the equipment is now obsolete. We don't have space for it.
And in South Africa, or all of Africa, the biggest project that you know of that TOA has done?
Will be the power stations. in SA that I know of, the Quebec Power Station. It's a nuclear power station in South Africa. Yes, got TOA. And most of the power stations in South Africa, they're basically running on TOA. Same as Cape Town International Airport is also on TOA.
For Cape Town, there's actually a video on the TOA Africa YouTube channel that shows the whole project.
Yes.
This is in terms of size.
Yes.
In terms of the most complex and interesting project you have done or worked on, which one is that?
I'll mention the offshore Olympia. It's a 400-bed ship that's owned by the French, I think, Mobile Oil Company. Yeah, it's anchored off the DRC Congo Brazzaville coast. It was on our VX2000 400-seater bed. I had nightmares there because operating on sea and land was two different things. So yeah, that I would say was one of the biggest, most challenging system that I've done. But other than that, the one that I've done on land will be one of my power stations. There's a power station called Anod Power Station in South Africa. Massive. Everything is decentralized per each building. So yeah, we had to learn the hard way, especially when it came to integration with the existing infrastructure, especially on the networking side. Also, like we were discussing about the electrician, IT, you try and tell them, okay, this is what I want for my system to work. And guess what? Something called multicasting is always blocked. I have learned the hard way on a corporate network because according to IT, multicasting does tend to flood their network, so they don't allow it. So I was asking guys, can you have multicast ports here open? They had them open. We did our first test, first day, worked beautiful. Come back to following morning, doesn't work. Like, okay.
Because they switch off the switch, and
yes,
we had the same problem here in Mulago Hospital.
Yes.
And we were scratching our heads every day.
Yes.
Emma managed to fix the problem, or I don't remember the installer. We come in the morning, it's not working.
Yes. Yes.
Just because the switch was not saving the settings.
100%.
It's always that small thing that kills you.
Yes, it is. You spot on. It is always that small little thing. So what I do, what I would advise technicians is, for you to be a good technician, you always have to think backwards. Think to the day the system was installed working and work your way backwards to say, okay, at 1600 hours yesterday it was okay. Now this morning it's okay. What happened between these hours is your solution. So I always try and think backwards to the day that it was working and move back and say, okay, this is my cause. So most of them, there are very little issues, but you can spend hours trying to find a fault only because you didn't do your diagnosis right.
IT over AV, or AV over IP, or AV over IT, and all of those combinations.
Yes.
Lots of the system integrators we have today, especially in Africa, are from the IT industry.
Yes.
And they don't understand AV at all.
Sure.
Not to mention audio, but AV in general. Is it a big challenge, even in South Africa, wherever you've moved, that IT are a bit, we don't want to let you be on our network?
100%. It's always.
And how do you manage to bridge that gap? How?
That's a very difficult one. It depends company to company. So what I do is, if I'm doing something like the VX, for example, which I know it needs multicasting between buildings, especially with different IP address segments. Before I do the installation, I go to the site and talk to the teams to say, guys, this is my system that you have asked for. This is what you are delivering. I need port A, B, C, D, port number A, B, C, D switched on. And please, if you can, put them on a separate network. Number one, preferably separate network for audio. If not, then create a separate VLAN for my stuff. So on my VLAN, nothing else gets connected to it. And usually, most cases, that works very well.
VLAN?
Yes.
Now, you are an electronic engineer,
yes,
sound guy.
Yes.
You also had to come to the IT industry to also understand some terms and some networking along the way.
Spot on.
Which one do you think is more complex, or vice versa? Do you think it's more difficult to get an IV to learn IT, or just your opinion, or more difficult to get an IT guy to learn AV?
I think it's just, for my thoughts, I think it's basically one of the same boss. I think it depends on a person's passion to learn. And unfortunately, for those who are like one-way minded, you're going to find it difficult, because before there used to be all separate systems. But as technology is evolving, everything is getting involved to be one. So for me, probably my difficult one was to go into IT and understand the basics. I'm not an IT expert, but there's many sites that I've been to that I've spoken to IT and they're like, oh, so you are IT? No, I'm not. I've taken an interest into the product because it's difficult for me to advise somebody when I don't know what I'm talking about. So my advice to technicians out there, don't be one-minded. Learn products around your industry because one way or the other, one day or the other, you're going to come where you need IT. You don't have to be an IT expert, but understand the terminology. You might need to be an audio integrator. You don't need to be an audio technician, but understand the technology. So I'm not saying be universal, specialize in something, but you have a broader understanding of what surrounds or supports your equipment to work as a system integrator.
Cool.
Yep.
Of all the places you've traveled in Africa, how many places you've been in Africa, or you're not like Ralph yet?
I've been to many countries. I can count probably 16 or 15. I've worked in West Africa. I've worked in East Africa. I've skipped maybe a couple of countries in Southern Africa. So I've been all over.
Which one is very interesting to be or totally surprising for you?
West Africa, especially Nigeria. Our perception of what we do as pro audio sound in Nigeria to the level that we have in East Africa and Southern Africa is completely two different things. One of the shocker that I heard was we were doing the Roman Catholic churches. So traditionally in Southern Africa, a Roman Catholic church normally has a piano, and then of course the priest who preaches, maybe a choir, and they have maybe a drum that they play. So I learned into West Africa, I'm like, okay, it's completely different. 30 choir member, full band, and I was taken by surprise because I thought the Pentecost, what they call the Pentecostal ministry, is what plays a full band, but in Nigeria it's completely different. So, and the expectation of sound, their understanding of sound, took me by surprise. When I thought I'm going there as a Dante certified technician, I'm like, yeah, here comes obvious, he knows Dante. And I got there, I'm a young man of 21, says, oh, I do Dante, I'm more specialist on Dante. So West Africa took me by surprise. Their understanding and their needs and wants for the sound is on a different ballgame to what we experience down south or in East Africa.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just to sum up, from your experience, we have lots of cheap products.
Yes.
Not to mention the origin, not
Yes.
to be offensive to anyone, but everyone knows
Yes.
what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And we have TOA,
Yes.
we have Bosch to the same level of TOA.
Yes.
How do you often have to explain clients the difference between TOA and the cheap products? Because in the end of the day, our market in Africa, people want cheap.
Yes.
Or some of them want value for their money.
Yes, correct.
Some don't mind paying, but they don't know. And in the end of the day, they end up in the cheap.
Yes.
And then they have to buy another system later.
Yes.
How do you usually explain to them the TOA benefits versus the cheap products in the market?
Right. That's a very difficult question. A lot of people have asked me, okay, why TOA? Why TOA? Are you just passionate about TOA because it pays you a salary? And the answer is no. So why would you buy a TOA against maybe a product that would cost you 10 times cheaper? Number one is longevity. You buy it, you know definitely you will get a product that will deliver over a number of years. And number two is the support. Some of these products that you find on the market, they could be good, they could be enticing, they look beautiful, but the moment you buy and you're out of the door, you're on your own. You have to find your footing through the waters, the mud, you have to learn to swim. Sometimes the support is rare. So TOA, one thing that I would want people to know, and that I've dealt with TOA, we pride ourselves in the support of our product. We're very hands-on to the extent that if you phone and something, I don't have an answer, I'm in direct contact with my seniors in Germany. We speak, hey, we have got a problem. If they haven't experienced it, they will escalate it. So the chain of technical support is far above what I've experienced over my 30 years in the industry. So yeah, somebody asks me, why would you buy an expensive product? What do you value in that product? Okay, the bottom line is, does whatever you want to buy provide you with a long-term solution? Because a lot of companies do install cheap ones. You are in the industry bus. They'll prefer to install cheap ones where in the course of the next 15 years of my product still being maintained, giving you service, you will have changed your product maybe 6-7 times to match the number of years. So yeah, somebody comes to me, why TOA? basically, we give you a lifespan of the product service. Number two, we give you and we pride ourselves in supporting our product. We are very proud to wear.
And I'm the example.
You are an example, exactly. Your stuff amazing. You all see them branded with TOA. So yeah, it's not just marketing; it is the product that delivers. So that's
In
one
fact,
thing.
TOA is not a. Sorry, TOA.
Yes.
You're not a great in marketing.
All right.
People don't know TOA. People know other brands, JBL, Bose,
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
But in the end of the day, when you go in the ceiling in most of the projects in the world,
Yes.
it's TOA.
Yes.
TOA has been there. We have thousands of products, thousands of installations.
Yes.
Thousands, if not more, of sites.
Yes.
With our systems installed, and they work for years.
100%.
So yes, we used to have on our old website, cheap is expensive.
Very true.
And this is what people don't understand.
Very true.
You're trying to save here small money,
Yes.
but in the end of the day, the repairs
Yes.
and the inconvenience.
100%.
If you need a sound system and it doesn't work when you need it, or the sound is not clear,
You don't have it.
you have some churches and mosques that the sound is rubbish.
Yes.
It's just not clear.
Yes.
So this is where TOA, the intelligibility of the speakers,
Correct.
the quality,
Yes.
reliability.
Yes.
Although we have seen in few countries, especially in Uganda, how we managed to destroy all sorts, but still, compared to other brands that we have brought here to Uganda,
Correct.
TOA is reliable. It works for years.
Thank you for that.
And yeah, don't try to save so much money.
Oh, yes.
That's our message to people.
correct.
My co-host for this podcast, Peter, he says, we made this podcast because we believe a good consumer is an educated consumer.
That's a good one.
And one of the problems of consumers, especially in Africa, but not only in Africa,
Yep.
they don't know how to buy speakers.
Oh, yes.
They think that the biggest is the loudest.
100%.
They think that the more watts
Yes.
is
The better.
the better.
Correct.
And yet, just like power saver bulbs, sometimes we have a 6-watt speaker that can be louder than a 30-watt speaker.
Spot on.
Or even more than that. We can have a small speaker
Yeah.
that is much louder than a big speaker.
100%.
But people don't understand it. So
100%.
we will do maybe tomorrow or another day, another podcast about this subject, about trying to get people how to buy speakers, how to look at speakers on the specs.
Yes.
But otherwise, for today, thank you very much.
Absolutely a
Hope it
pleasure.
was not painful, the podcast.
No, it wasn't. And thank you for having me. And to those who will be listening to the podcast, I always believe in this. Be passionate about your product or be passionate about what you do. And when clients talk to you, you offer them a solution that works. The whole point about us being TOA, of making what we have made, is making sure that the product delivers when it's needed.
Cool. Thank you very much. Okay.